NPC.
Life's rough.
When you depend on me.
To give you
weapons,
items,
armor,
armor, information for your journey, and still you just pushing and trying to hurt me. Life's tough.
When you're an NPC.
Life's rough.
When you depend.
Do you know what's a painfully underrated genre in gaming and really life, all things considered? Steampunk. Steampunk continues to baffle me. The reason being is because it should be seen in much more of our culture than what it is. Steampunk is a huge part of nerd culture and communities. Just look at conventions. We are currently at the height of convention season right now. There is going to be steampunk communities everywhere. Solid steampunk communities at each of them, with various conventions being exclusively steampunk. You'll see steampunk Pikachus, regular steampunk cosplayers galore. And yet, there is so little in terms of mainstream stories and mainstream products. Yes, steampunk is referenced in a variety of shows like Legend of Korra and in movies like Snowpiercer, but they tend to be nods to the genre more than a major point of the entire story. As a matter of fact, the areas that I can really see steampunk aspects in a very large sort of narrative, or at least large representation, is like musical bands like Steam Powered Giraffe. The WWE wrestler Becky Lynch has a steampunk gimmick. Full Metal Alchemist and, okay, well, the less said about that, the better. Now, don't get me wrong here. There's still plenty of steampunk works out there. There's an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to it, and also its progenitors. What I'm saying is that out of all of the punks, cyberpunk, solarpunk, dieselpunk, really steampunk, I would say, is probably the biggest at this point, and yet it is so widely just underrepresented. And this representation, or lack thereof, also falls into RPGs as well. I would say when it comes to RPGs, the steampunk genre is criminally underrated. Out of most of them, they typically are just offshoot books of modular games like GURPS, Savage Worlds, and Fate. And then the only standalone that I have come across is a painfully old Space 1889 and Airship Pirates. So on to today's subject, which is Tephra. Tephra is a steampunk-inspired RPG from Daniel Burrow and Cracked Monocle Games. Released in 2012, the focus of Cracked Monocle has been building and expanding upon this franchise. And already, I have to give Burrow and Cracked Monocle Games massive amount of praise before I even get into it. Steampunk is just such an underrepresented and untapped resource that it's good to reach out and actually try to corner the market, so to speak, when it comes to this style of gameplay. I wouldn't necessarily say that Space 1889 and Airship Pirates is going to be anything that's going to be memorable. From what I understand of them, they tend to be very niche and kind of forgotten unless you're a huge steampunk fan. So, Tephra is really the one reaching out into this just untapped resource and has put a lot of effort into expanding upon this world, in this one game in particular, so that steampunk RPGers out there can reach for something that isn't Savage Worlds, Fate, or GURPS. No offense to them. Before we get into the crunch of the game, let's go over some of the cosmetics and fluff. First off, the artwork and layout of the book is excellent. The book has the look of a beaten-up and weathered tome in a steampunk world. The artwork gives the impression of a steampunk cartoon that also gives off the impression of how the world operates, which is critical for a genre such as steampunk that is about 90% aesthetic. Tephra also has a fantastic in-universe world built around it, and it isn't just a steampunk game. They take a lot of elements of fantasy as well and combine them into a very excellently told story. They also leave it mildly open too, so that you can insert your own characters into the narrative and kind of mold history as you see fit. It's really a fantastic addition to this game that gets people more immersed into your story. There's a fully built universe for you to explore. There are characters that can be created in your mind as you're reading. Fantasy kind of creatures. It's just the total package of what you want from world building in an RPG. The game does not lack for ambition. It builds its own universe, leaves it flexible for any and all alterations, and stays true to the steampunk narrative, keeping it as the most important aspect of the story while adding fantasy elements to it. The system itself, it's pretty much a mix of simplistic and complex, but overall, at the end of the day, I'm going to say that it's good. The game uses a single die, a D12, and operates on a tiered results, with 4 tiers ranging from barely passing to beyond human success. You have modifiers that either subtract or add to your roll that follow a similar system to skills and attributes. Skills are separated into 5 categories: brute, dexterity, science, cunning, and spirit, with 4 to 6 skills falling under each category. You also have a variety of specialties and augmentations that you can do on your character as well, similar to something like Shadowrun, where a lot of the fun is actually changing and altering your character and adding on to new things. Really adds a lot to it. It does make the game a little, what's the word I'm looking for, complex? Maybe a little too complex. Like, the character sheet's a little cluttered, if you could see from the video. But it's not necessarily a game-breaking thing. It's just something to note of. So what do I think of Tephra? I think it is phenomenal. Steampunk is a major yet strangely underrepresented community, and this game is the first one that I have seen that truly gives the total package for steampunk aficionados that isn't a modular game, and a game that can get people really invested into steampunk as a concept. The system itself is simplistic and complex at the same time. It can seem a little cluttered and a little daunting at first, but once you get the hang of it, it really is a fantastic game. Overall, this game is getting a crit. It is a total package of gaming. You have a really good system. You have fantastic world, fantastic narrative, just everything that you could really want from a steampunk RPG, all mixed together into one. So, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. And come back again in a couple of days for the next episode of Clan Book Retrospective, where we're going to be looking at Clan Toreador.